Hey, it's Adam jumping in real quick. So when we record this podcast, we record our audio and video separately. And what happened with this episode of Sin City was that our video file got corrupted. Andy and I talked a little bit and we felt that the conversation we had was really good. So we wanted to go ahead and preserve that to you guys and present it to you. So those of you who are watching on YouTube are going to get a still image while you have our conversation over Sin City. During that podcast, I talk about this book. This is my well-loved copy of Rebel Without a Crew. Anyone who's interested in filmmaking or independent filmmaking, this is definitely a must-read. I pulled this up a couple times and flipped through it, so just wanted to show you what it looks like before we get into the episode. So sit back and enjoy, and next week we will be back with a normal episode. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Shame, a weekly podcast where we talk about our list of movie blind spots or a list of shame. My name is Andy.
And I'm Adam.
And this time we're going to talk about, last time we talked about Frank Miller's 300 brought to the screen by none other than Zack Snyder.
Yep.
This time we are going to talk about Sin City, a collaboration between Frank Miller, Robert Rodriguez, and in one scene, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
Let's do it.
Got you smoking there, bud.
You shut the hell up, Jackie boy. You're dead. I'm just imagining this, so shut the hell up.
It tells you something about your state of mind, don't it? It's got you hearing things, got your nerves shot. It's got you smoking. You know it's true. Nobody ever really quits. A smoker when the chips are down. And your chips are down.
All right, let's talk about Sin City. Sin City is a movie that is directed by Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller. In fact, there's actually a contention with the DGA over Robert Rodriguez wanting credit for Frank Miller to get this because he felt that the movie, well, I think Frank Miller actually directed that, helped direct it, and also he borrowed heavily from the comic book pages, the graphic novel pages, and also Frank Miller would go on to direct the sequel, Sin City, A Dame to Kill. Mm-hmm. And also very interesting is Robert Rodriguez refused to take writer's credit on this movie.
Right.
So there's no written by.
Right.
So this is another shot-for-shot adaptation of a Frank Miller graphic novel. I didn't remember that it came out before 300, but it did.
Yeah.
I thought this was a post-300 movie, but it's actually a pre-300 movie. And again, he's borrowing a lot of stylistic elements from the graphic novel. The movie's mostly black and white with some pops of color here and there to kind of make it stand out. And it's a amalgamation of many different stories kind of told into one kind of noir piece. So this is a movie we both saw.
Yep.
I actually thought it worked really well. And I thought it was very interesting how he kind of bookends it and has it, the different stories kind of play out together. What did you think about the movie?
So first I want to ask you, when was the first time you saw this, first time you ever seen Sin City?
I saw it in theaters and I've seen it numerous times in home video.
Numerous, okay.
So I mean, we're going to talk about this in a second, but
Without a crew.
I'm a big Robert Rodriguez fan. So when I wanted to make movies, my friend Steve, I don't think he gave me this book, but he definitely told me to buy this book. And so we'll get into this. So anything he makes, I try to see, minus the children's stuff. But that's a little side note before we jump into it.
So I'm like you. I saw it in theaters in 2005. I didn't really know what to expect, but I freaking loved it when I saw it in the theaters. I've probably seen it at least once since then on home video. And then, of course, obviously this past weekend when I rewatched it. But I got to say, I love this movie more than ever. I absolutely,
oh, really?
Yes, I think it's phenomenal. I might enjoy it more now than I enjoyed it in 2005, if that's possible, because I really loved it in 2005. I love the look of it. So there's a couple of versions of it. There's the theatrical version. There's like a recut version, which I think, is it out of order or something? The theatrical, I think, is just in order. So it has the story. It has the prologue with Josh Hartnett and Marley Shelton. And then or is the theatrical out of order?
I think it's out of order too, because I think it does Josh Hartnett, then it does the Bruce Willis story, then it goes into Marv's story, then it goes into the story of Clive.
Clive Owen.
Clive Owen, yes. I was going to say Clive Barker. That's not Clive Barker.
No.
And then it goes back to Bruce Willis' story. But the whole movie is kind of out of order, but I think that's, if I remember correctly, that's the way it was theatrically.
Okay. I couldn't remember because I for some reason I felt like, because what I watched this weekend was, I guess, the theatrical or whatever. It clocked in at just over 2 hours, but the extended version is almost 2.5 hours. So I believe I've seen that one at least once, but I don't remember exactly what the differences are. I mean, obviously it's longer, but I don't remember what the differences are as far as if things are cut and pasted and rearranged in different ways. But I don't think it matters. I think this story or this movie is very, very satisfying as far as the pace goes. I think I would watch anything with Mickey Rourke as Marv. I love that character. He's
great.
Just an unstoppable tank.
And I think this is what got the renaissance for Mickey Rourke, because he would do The Wrestler in 2007.
Yeah, a few years after.
2007, 2008, directed by Darren Aronofsky. And he would get that got Best Picture nom. And I think he got a Best Actor nom for that too.
They got a lot of accolades, right?
So, I mean, and that's a great movie. So I think this was like kind of a rediscovering of Mickey Rourke. And I think he is great as Marv.
Yeah, he's perfectly cast.
The dialogue is heightened in the movie because they're trying to go for that hard-boiled kind of detective. And it's kind of copying off the page. And honestly, it didn't bother me that much. Like I thought it would.
Well, and I don't think it should, because as you said, I mean, they're deliberately trying to evoke this. And it doesn't really ever say when the movie takes place. The cars are all old. Yeah. But obviously the weaponry and things are newer. So it's just kind of
cell phones.
Right. It's just kind of an out of place, out of time kind of experience. But they're definitely trying to evoke this old 40s, 50s, whatever, hard-boiled Pulp Fiction kind of thing. You know, not to mean Pulp Fiction by Quentin Tarantino, but you know what I mean. Pulp novels, I guess. They're trying to evoke that sort of thing. But I am never bored, or I was never bored with this film, even at 2 hours. For me, it just breezes by. I think if I had one complaint, and it's not even much of a complaint about the movie, I do feel like the Clive Owen story is slightly draggy. Yeah. But even still, I'm still enthralled with it. Maybe not as much as the Marv story or the Bruce Willis, Hartigan, and Jessica Alba, Nancy Callahan story is actually pretty short, honestly.
It is, but I think the first the Bruce Willis stuff in the prequel was still short too. But I thought Bruce Willis's character kind of has the whole heart of the movie. I felt like when I was watching it. Yeah. But again, the Marv stuff was probably, if I had to choose one, the standout of the whole vignettes that we got to see. Yeah.
Well, Marv, I really love Marv because, again, he's pretty much unstoppable. He's running through, he's jumping into windshields of cop cars and kicking guys and doing all kinds of stuff. It even takes 2 tries with the electric chair to kill this guy.
I love it when he wakes back up. He's like, "That's all you got?" Yes. Like spitting blood everywhere. They're like,
He's getting shot all over the place. I mean, it's an incredible thing.
Yeah, no one really dies because like Hartigan got shot pretty bad, and he came back, right?
Well, of course, but then he committed suicide at the end.
At the end, and then I feel like there was one other character that got pretty well beat up and basically got pulled through, but I don't remember right there. So here's my question to you is Robert Rodriguez underrated as a director?
Maybe slightly. It's hard to say. I mean, I feel like he gets a lot of recognition from the Tarantino lovers and from the people like that, because obviously he's done collaborations with Tarantino. And again, as we sort of mentioned at the beginning, Tarantino directed the scene where they're driving to the pits,
which is a standout scene. Yeah, I think that's probably the best scene in the movie. I would rank.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I think.
I think it's dig it.
well directed. I think it's very interesting the way it does it, and it's just like a captivating way of kind of doing it. And I like how Benicio del Toro's head just rolls around and the pitch and timbre of his voice changes.
When it's got his Pez dispenser throat.
Awesome.
Yeah, he talks differently, and then he closes back down and does this. Yeah.
Because Robert Rodriguez, he directed El Mariachi, right? Which is what this book's about, is kind of him doing his own film school and learning how to direct that, right? Then he did Desperado with Antonio Banderas, which is my favorite of those kind of trilogy of movies. And he's done he direct Dusk Till Dawn?
Yeah, From Dusk Till Dawn. And so many people are like, Quentin Tarantino directed that. And I'm like, no, Quentin Tarantino's in it.
I think he wrote it too.
Yeah, he may have written. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but he did not direct it. That was Robert Rodriguez. Yes.
And he's gone on to direct all these kind of movies. Once Upon a Time Hollywood. Just recently directed Alita: Battle Angel that Jim Cameron produced. He's directed some children's movies, which are blind spots for both of us: the Spy Kids movies and Shark Boy and Lava Girl. But I think he's a very solid action director. I will say he's ADD sometimes with his action. I feel like he cuts a lot, and that might be from his low budget roots. But when he lets the camera linger, like I think Alita is a really good movie, and I think he kind of shot that in a style that he felt was more Jim Cameron, and I think it actually suits him a little bit better. But this movie also is not as fast paced and ADD. I feel like we're not always cutting like you would see with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. No, not Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Sorry, that he directed. I felt like was cutting a whole lot.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I don't know if he's underrated, because again, I feel like he gets enough love from the people that like Tarantino and some of these other directors. But I mean, he might be slightly. I don't know that when a Robert Rodriguez movie comes out, that people are like, oh my God, a Robert Rodriguez movie is coming out. Whereas they would be probably with James Cameron movie, because he never makes anything these days, or Mark Scorsese or somebody like that. I don't know that he gets obviously Tarantino, because Tarantino, when he comes out with a film, it's the 8th film by Quentin Tarantino, or they make such a huge deal out of that. And I don't know that a lot of people even know that Alita: Battle Angel was a Robert Rodriguez movie, honestly. So he might be slightly underrated, sure.
I think he is, and I think he, his Troublemaker Studios is in Austin. Mm-hmm. He's based out of Austin. And I think I feel like he needs to start directing movies that he doesn't write. He does write a lot of his movies. And he's a very intelligent and very capable filmmaker. But I feel like, and I'm giving him career advice, and he's infinitely more successful than I am.
Listen up, Robert.
Yeah, so this is coming from a good place. No. But I would love to see him direct some other stuff, because I do think, like, if he directs like a comic book movie or a Marvel movie, he would be like at the level like a James Gunn is right now, right? Where they kind of take him a little bit out of the, indie love and more into the mainstream, because he is very capable, and he is a better film director than a lot of the film directors out right now.
But I wonder, does he not want that because he likes having maybe more control and his own?
I think he does,
his own studio and all that.
And he does. And the other thing I kind of wanted to call out a little bit is, like, if you have any interest in filmmaking, you need to buy every single one of Robert Rodriguez's DVDs or Blu-rays, because on there he has this segment called 10-Minute Film School. Have you watched any of those?
I have.
And these things are great. So for like Once Upon a Time Mexico, he talked about how he uses green screen. For Shark Boy and Lava Girl, or the Spy Kids movies, I forgot which one I saw of it, although I haven't seen the movie. He talks about mirroring the set to double it and stuff like that. And there's a lot of really good, really useful information inside of those segments. So if you're ever interested in the technique and how to film, that is pure knowledge right there. And the book is.
And I would say even further that, not only watch those, but if you have a chance, watch the movies that he's made with his commentary.
Yeah.
Because even if because I did watch the first Spy Kids, I think. That's probably the only one I've seen. Not really my kind of movie, but just watching it with the commentary is so fascinating, because as you said, he's just a very smart guy. He's a very smart filmmaker. And I don't watch a lot of commentaries, because I don't have a lot of time, but I can't stand when I put on a commentary and the director or whoever is just going, oh yeah, so in this scene, she's walking over to him and he's just explaining what's on, or she is explaining what's on screen and not adding anything whatsoever to, I'm not saying they all need to be super technical, but give me something other than just telling me what I'm already seeing on screen. And Robert Rodriguez is all about that. He's all about giving you technical information. This is why we did this. This is why we did that. And I haven't seen them all, but I find the ones that I've watched absolutely fascinating, particularly the El Mariachi one.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He adds a lot in his film commentaries, and he is a useful resource of information. The other thing he started introducing recently that I really like are his 10-minute cooking schools.
I was going to say,
which
what
are
about
awesome.
the cooking school? Yes.
He does the it's a puerco pibil, whatever the dish that Johnny Depp kills over in Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Oh, right.
He does that.
Right.
For Alita Battle Angel, he does chocolate and how to make his own chocolate.
Okay.
And he does one of them. I think he does tacos. I feel like I probably shouldn't say that if I know that for sure, but he does for sure. His cooking schools are awesome too. I mean, he's just like I said, I feel like he is. I mean, he's been doing this for so long, and maybe this is where he wants his career. But I just feel like I just want to see like a movie a year or 2 movies, 3 movies every 3 years from him, like of big main pictures. And I feel like he deserves to be in that conversation of like great American directors.
So jumping back to Desperado, you say you like Desperado. That's your favorite out of the Mariachi trilogy.
I like El Mariachi a lot, and I can understand and empathize and see like what he did to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like Desperado is a more polished version of El Mariachi, and that's
did you see Desperado before you saw El Mariachi?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so I saw El Mariachi first. Yeah. And loved it. I thought, oh my God, because again, it was like folklore at that point. Yeah. This guy made this movie for what was it, $2,500?
I think it's $25,000.
I know the number has gone up. Some people go, oh, well, that's a lie. It was actually this much or whatever. But regardless, you could tell that it was made for not very much money.
Yeah.
But it's super, super creative. And I remember when it came out, I remember getting a copy at the video store, renting it from the video store and watching it and just thinking, wow, I can't believe this guy made this for as little money as he did with these untrained actors, because I thought it was a great action movie. Yeah. He edited it, I guess, using like 2 VCRs or something. And I mean, he talks about in the book they had to, use VHS and then blow it up to this and then blow it up to this and then do this and all these things that he did technically to get the movie made. It just really makes you admire his perseverance and everything in striving to do that. But when Desperado came out, I like Desperado. I don't mind Once Upon a Time in Mexico that much, but to me, Desperado, I loved the old school low budget kind of charm of El Mariachi, and Desperado was this fancy, like you said, polished version. But I think the polished was what kind of threw me off. I was like, I wish it was kind of more like El Mariachi, which is an unrealistic expectation because obviously he's got A-list actors in Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek.
Were they A-list
at
the
bigger
time?
Budget. Maybe
soon to be A-list.
Well, certainly in their home countries they would have been, right? I mean, Antonio Banderas had been making movies for Pedro Almodovar, and Salma Hayek had been making movies in Mexico and whatnot.
She was doing telenovelas and stuff.
So I'm sure they were very well known. Maybe not necessarily as much in the States at that point, but yeah, soon to be for sure. But I think just seeing Desperado, I was a little taken aback. Again, I don't dislike Desperado, but I think that's why I kind of prefer El Mariachi over. I like the clunkiness, maybe the low budgetness of El Mariachi compared to the polished and clean look of Desperado. So,
yeah, totally get that. They're both neck and neck in my eyes of great movies, and I guess it comes down to taste. And like I said, I like the more polished of it. I like Antonio Banderas walking on the bar playing the guitar. Like that scene just stuck out to me. Yeah. I like how the lights dim whenever he walks into the bar. I mean, the whole concept is just awesome. Like a guy that carries guns in a guitar case is very cool, and they take it very far. Right. And I think so. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen those movies, you're in for a treat if you watch any of those movies.
Yes. Do yourself a favor, and
then watch them in order. Like Andy said, it's probably the best way to watch it. But I feel like El Mariachi or Desperado is pretty much a remake of El Mariachi. Kind of like, for me, it's like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, right?
Yeah.
Where they're basically covering the same story points, just with a little bit higher budget.
Yep.
And maybe different actors.
Very true. So he did the El Mariachi trilogy, and basically at this point, we've gotten off of Sin City, and we're just talking about Robert Rodriguez. He did what now?
Machete.
Machete. But he did the Faculty.
He did The Faculty, which is a really good horror movie.
I
haven't seen it since it came out.
I was gonna say it's been so long since I've seen it. I don't even remember anything about it. And it came out at the same time as, was it Killing Mrs. Tingle? Or no, it was originally called Killing Mrs. Tingle. Then it was Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
Yeah.
Right. And that those two came out at the same time. And for some reason, I get those mixed up sometimes. But yeah, I feel like I need to rewatch The Faculty, and I still need to see Alita: Battle Angel because I'm delinquent. I haven't seen.
I saw that one without you, and I think we never got around to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I haven't seen Faculty since it came out. I think it came out in like 99, 2000, around that time, and I just remember it being a solid movie. Like I said, this guy is a very capable director. I wish Alita did so much better than it actually did, because I think Alita just shows he's, because since he does, and he kind of does his own special effects. He started his own kind of Troublemaker, I think is the name also of his effects studio or something along those lines. And so he's one of those directors that he knows exactly what he needs to shoot to get what he wants. Because I feel like sometimes with modern movies, the directors are just kind of at the whim of the special effects people, or they just shoot something and they feel like they can fix it in post and spend a lot of money in special effects. But I think Robert Rodriguez really has a good eye for, okay, this is what needs to be practical. This is something that we can do not practical, but we can do it with special effects a little bit easier. He just knows like where those boundaries are and can make it very seamless when he does it in those movies. I remember him, the first time I remember someone using digital blood splatters actually once upon a time in Mexico, because in the church they were using rubber guns. And he calls it out in one of his commentaries.
Yeah, I did watch that commentary.
The gun wiggles a little bit, but they use digital blood.
Yes,
which is something that's used a whole lot now, and I think almost too much. Like with the latest John Wick movie, to me the blood looks very, very fake, and maybe that's because the timeline was rushed or whatever. But I think he kind of led a little bit of the was innovative in doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
So. I think jumping back to Sin City, I think the cast is great. Bruce Willis, hardboiled detective, great casting. Like we said, Marv with Mickey Rourke is, perfect. He became Marv, I guess. I feel like a little bit. I wish we got more Josh Hartnett character. You said you saw the sequel, right?
I did, yes.
Did we get more Josh Hartnett in the sequel?
No, he is not in the sequel. Speaking of the cast, I just want to point out it does have cameos by both Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez.
Frank Miller plays the priest.
Yes, who gets shot by Marv. And then Robert Rodriguez is one of the SWAT officers or whatever, right? Which I didn't see.
I didn't know.
Movie.
I didn't know.
I was reading the IMDb trivia, and they said he had a cameo as one of the SWAT officers, and I thought, oh, well, I guess you blink and you miss. Obviously, Frank Miller's cameo is a lot more substantial because he actually has some dialogue. No. They both have cameos in the sequel as well. They are on a television that Nancy Callahan, played by Jessica Alba, watches very briefly. But jumping back, the first Sin City, I was talking to you about this earlier. I was surprised, of course, it has been 15 years since Sin City was made, how many of the cast is no longer with us. And some of those people actually had to be recast in the sequel, which came out in 2014. Powers Booth is no longer with us. Rutger Hauer has passed. Brittany Murphy, Michael Clark Duncan. Nick Stahl's career has died. Maybe not Nick Stahl, but his career, I think, has
and he did such a good job in that movie.
He does.
As the yellow bastard.
The yellow bastard.
And then also as Rourke Jr., I think is, or Rourke Jr.?
Rourke, well, he's the Rourke kid. I don't know what his name is. But so one thing that I did notice about the movie is that he is chasing Nancy and Hartigan. And Hartigan is shooting him, and he crashes. So they stop the car and they go to look for his body, and he's gone. Yeah. Well, then they drive back to Nancy's place, and he's been in the back seat. Didn't he stink horribly? Hartigan says that about how he stinks.
Yeah, but he says it in the car too.
Oh, he does. Okay, maybe I guess I missed that line.
No, because
he's like, God, Nancy's farting so much. I just don't want to say anything. That's what I was thinking because I saw. I guess I wasn't paying attention or it went in one ear and out the other. But I was like, how did the yellow bastard hitch a ride in the back seat?
He said the line because when he said
that's not a goof. I thought that was just
when
a
he
goof.
said the line and it revealed the yellow bastard, because I don't remember a whole lot of it since the last time I saw it.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, cool.
Here.
I'm glad they had that line. That was pretty clever. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I missed that because I saw him rise up out of the back seat and I thought, seriously, that's what went through my mind. I thought, did Hardigan just think that Nancy's cutting farts over here? And he's like, oh, I don't want to say anything because she's hot, so I'm just gonna let it go. Hey Nancy, crack a window, why don't you? I don't know.
Maybe that's a little too much. Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, so the sequel. They
got Dennis Haysbert to replace Michael Clark Duncan.
Yes, right. And honestly, I didn't realize it was the same character. I thought it was just another guy that wore a similar outfit. But yes, it is supposed to be the same character. Clive Owen was originally apparently going to be in the film, but he was tied up with another movie.
Shoot 'em up?
So I don't think it was Shoot 'em up. It was something else.
I feel like this movie made him go do Shoot 'em up. But then Children of Men was around this time too, so he might have been doing Children of Men.
No. Children of Men I think was a lot prior.
Oh really?
It was quite a bit prior.
I always imagined Children of Men being in the 2010s, but maybe it's not.
No. 20. I thought it was the same year as 300, 2026. As you said.
It might be.
I don't know. But no. I read what movie it was, but I was like, I don't know what movie that is. But he is played by, so in Sin City, the original Sin City, they make mention of the fact that Dwight has a new face. That's his character's name, Dwight. They make a mention of the fact that he has a new face. So in the sequel, he's played by Josh Brolin prior to the plastic surgery that made him Clive Owen.
So is the Dame to Kill for the sequel a prequel? Or there's different vignettes or prequels?
It's different vignettes, I would say, are prequels because Hardigan is still dead in the sequel, but Marv is still alive. Gotcha. So, in fact, the movie starts off with Marv. And, I'm jumping all around here. I will say the sequel, when I first started it, I've never seen it before. When I first started it, I was so pleased to be back in that universe. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the sequel is not nearly as good as the original.
Do you think it's not written or directed as well as the original? Or what do you think is... What's the difference? Because the look is the
look is the same, so you can't really fault the look per se. There's a lot. I feel like a lot of the people that missed out on being in the first Sin City were like, ooh, I want to be in the sequel. So they cram them in, and they don't really need to be there. For example, there's a character played by Jeremy Piven, and his partner is Christopher Maloney. Okay. I don't feel like they really need to be in the movie at all.
Are they cops?
I don't feel like they are cops, and I don't feel like
it's Christopher Maloney. Yeah, he only plays police
sure.
officers.
I don't feel like they need to be in the movie at all. The other thing I felt was that I don't think the stories are anywhere near as interesting as they are in the first film. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a pretty big role in this one. I feel like his story is really pointless. Yeah. So just things like that kind of drag it down. The longest story in the sequel deals with Dwight, the Josh Brolin character, Eva Green, Dennis Haysbert, as you said, replacing Michael Clark Duncan. It's another, it's kind of one of those, the wife is in distress, her husband, what are they going to do? They hire a guy to sort things out. I don't want to give too much away, but I didn't care for the sequel.
I need to
that much, unfortunately.
revisit the sequel. I need to watch it. I've never watched it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's worth watching at least once, to kind of see. Because again, if nothing else, I love the look of those films. So I mean, it's watchable just for that. But I don't think it's nearly as compelling or as interesting as the first film, unfortunately.
Did you ever watch The Spirit? Because that's a Michael Eisner, based off his character, Michael Eisner. Not Michael Eisner.
Will Eisner, right? Will Eisner's the guy that created The Spirit, and then directed by Frank Miller.
And it was directed by Frank Miller.
I never
saw it. I didn't see it.
Well, it was a notorious bomb, right? I mean, it didn't make any money, or at least it got terrible reviews. Yeah. I don't know how much money it made, but it got terrible reviews. So I believe that's one of those movies that I saw it long after the fact. So I knew that it was like a terrible movie, supposedly, and it had gotten all these bad reviews. So I watched it with absolute zero expectations. I don't remember loving it, but as usually happens with movies like that, you go, well, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. So I think that's kind of how I felt about it. But honestly, it must have been pretty forgettable because I remember almost nothing about it. I know it has Gabriel Macht as the Spirit.
Yes, which I like.
ScarJo is in it. Samuel L. Jackson's in it. I think Sarah Paulson is in it. Yeah. But I don't remember the plot or what happens. But
And I remember leading up to that there was not a good buzz around it, so I don't think I ever ended up seeing it.
Yeah, I know the reviews were atrocious for it, as I recall. So,
So with that, what else would you like to talk about with Sin City or Basin City?
I think we've covered it all.
Yep.
Unless you have anything further
Nope,
to
I
add.
was looking at my notes. We did call out the scene that Tarantino directed. Like I said, I feel like that's my favorite scene. Is just that it just has a lot of juice and a lot of like, it just feels very suave and confident, and it's just very smart. And I don't know if they lifted that directly from the pages or not, but I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Do you have a favorite scene that you can know off the top of your head? Not to put you on spot.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of a cheat, but basically just anything with Marv anything with Marv in both movies, really. I just enjoy seeing Mickey Rourke kicking ass on screen and I like the makeup. You know, it reminds me of Dick Tracy or something.
And the other thing I want to call out too that I just remembered was Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec is in it.
Yes,
and he looks completely not like you would expect Nick Offerman to look.
He does. Yeah, I remember watching it, and I didn't. You see him early on in the movie,
but you don't really see
him later when they bust in and Hardigan has freed himself from hanging. You see him, and I was like, oh shit, that's Nick Offerman. Holy crap! Yeah, that was crazy.
It's very cool. Like I said, he did a great job just directing the movie. Robert Rodriguez did. I think all the roles are well cast, and it's just really good movie. And if it's one of those ones that you haven't seen or you've been holding off, definitely we both give it a really good thumbs up. And,
absolutely. Definitely see Sin City. And going back to the previous episode, C300, I didn't particularly care for it, but I think it's worth seeing again just for the visual style and kind of what they did technically with the movie. I think it's very interesting.
But ultimately, we probably feel like Sin City is probably a better adaptation.
Way better.
Better story. Yeah.
Much more entertaining. And I know for me, definitely. All right. So with that, we always like to do a viewer question, and of course, this one very much ties into what we've been talking about.
Imagine that.
I know.
That's so weird how that works.
Random. So we've been talking about comic book movies, or more particularly comic books written by Frank Miller that were adapted into films.
Or graphic novels. I use them interchangeably.
So the question is, what is your favorite incarnation of a comic book brought to film? What
do you think about that?
Yeah.
So immediately, those who've seen the prior episodes, my immediate jump is to Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which I think is the best Batman story ever told in a feature length format. I guess any movie over 80 minutes, I think that Batman movie is the best. But you brought up The Rocketeer, and I love The Rocketeer. Like, I really, really love The Rocketeer. I feel like The Rocketeer doesn't get nearly enough love. And
it's pretty overlooked nowadays.
It's very overlooked. And, the same guy, Joe Johnston, directed that. And he would go on to direct another underrated movie that is great, which is Captain America: First Avenger, which borrows a lot in the same kind of milieu and kind of the 50s kind of period and stuff like that. So, but... That said, and you brought up some other good ones that I hope you bring up again so we can talk about them. But like I said, I think I'm just going to have to stick to Old Faithful and say Batman: Mask of Phantasm is, in my opinion, the best comic book movie made. Even though I talked about how much I like The Watchmen, or I love The Watchmen, and all those other things, I just think that is the perfect one, in my opinion. So, hate me or not, that's my opinion.
Oh, I don't think anybody hates you for that pick.
Yeah. and things that aren't surprising to anyone. So, Andy, what about yourself?
All right. So, again, I mean, it's very easy for me to go back to also Batman, and that actually probably would be my pick. But before I get into which Batman, we were kind of looking at a list of comic book movies earlier, because you forget, right? I mean, definitely the MCU and the DC extended universe, the DC universe. I
didn't even think of the MCU. Hold on.
You didn't think of the MCU. What says comic book movies more than the MCU? Well, anyway,
Winter Soldier.
While you're thinking of that, obviously you think, or maybe Adam doesn't, but you think of the MCU and the DC universe and go, okay, of course those are comic book movies. It's Superman, it's Batman, it's Wonder Woman, it's Spider-Man, etc. But you forget about movies like Blade, which who doesn't love Blade?
Blade's great.
Blade is great.
Blade doesn't get enough love, I feel.
No, Blade is great. Constantine.
Yeah, you mentioned Constantine, and I forgot about it. Constantine doesn't, although Keanu doesn't look a lot like John Constantine.
Who cares?
That movie is awesome.
Yeah, Constantine is awesome.
That's a great movie.
Some other ones that I mean, I don't. These definitely wouldn't be my favorites or anything, but I forget. Not that I dislike this movie, but I forget again that it's adapted from a comic book. Is Ghost World? Did you ever see Ghost World with Thora Birch and ScarJo?
No. I saw that and thought it was like a in the dollhouse kind of thing. Yeah.
No, I mean, I honestly, I think Ghost World is a good movie.
Right.
So maybe we'll watch that one of these days. But that's a comic book
Scott
movie.
Pilgrim versus the World. Edgar Wright movie, great movie.
It's a great movie. I want to point out some terrible movies. Sheena. Did you ever see Sheena from the '80s with Tanya Roberts?
No.
You're just like, no. Well, it's pretty bad.
You said Sheena, and I started thinking about She-Ra, and I'm like, wait, wasn't that an animated like TV series? And then I was like, wait, no, you said Sheena, not She-Ra.
Sheena. Then of course you got to mention before the MCU, you've got all the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man,
which were good for its time. Those are things that I rewatched probably about 3 months ago with Kirby, and I don't think they hold up in a post MCU world.
Yeah, they got Macy Gray in them for crying out loud.
They have one of them has Macy Gray.
Yeah,
in it.
no, yeah.
But we also have the awesome
the Andrew Garfield ones,
Punisher from the '90s,
Punisher from the '90s with Dolph Lundgren. But
all those the '70s Captain Americas.
70s Captain America, 70s Spider-Man as well. Yeah.
Which are...
And Captain America from 1990, which starred J.D. Salinger's son. Random.
So you're going to say that your favorite one is the Fantastic Four movie directed by...
the most recent one?
No, the one we saw. That,
the one that never got a proper release? No, because I've actually not watched that in its entirety. We watched the Doom documentary about it, but I haven't watched
who was the director? Corman.
Yeah, it was Roger Corman.
Roger Corman.
At least production.
Yep, for sure.
Of course, a movie that just came out last year, which I really enjoyed, was Joker.
Yeah, you know this because we talked about it, but Joker really didn't do it for me as a movie. I do think Joaquin Phoenix had a great performance in it, but just overall story-wise, Oscar winning, of course.
Yeah.
Because they're always right.
Yeah, I know. I realize Oscars don't mean anything, but that's because that is the highest kind of award that you get in acting. We tend to bring that up a lot.
And I like I said, I do think it's deserved. It just, for me, I mean, we talked about this. I feel like it's more, there's not a lot of substance to it. I think it's very interesting and very stylized, and he's obviously borrowing a lot from Scorsese in the late 70s and 80s, with Taxi Driver and Kings of Comedy, in the movie. But I just feel like it's kind of hollow in that aspect, and there's not a lot of meat to it. It's just my opinion with Joker. But I'm in the minority with that, I think.
And then the final film that I want to mention before I actually give my
this is like longer than our Sin City
I know. The final one that I want to mention is a movie that you and I have both seen within the last few years. It's adapted from a Japanese manga, and it's Ricky-O, the story of Ricky. If you've never seen the story of Ricky, do yourself a favor, and after you're done watching this, somehow procure yourself a copy of the story of Ricky and watch it, because it is absolutely batshit insane. But in a good way.
No, it's crazy.
It's hilarious.
I meant, so you showed this to us and some of your friends.
Yes, yes.
So we got to see that, but we also got to go see it in the theater.
We saw it
at the Draft House.
We did,
and that was awesome.
Fortuitously enough, we
Yeah.
watched it at my house. A bunch of us watched it at my house, and I don't think anybody had seen it except for me. I was like, "Oh, you guys got to see this!" And then maybe like a month or two later, we saw that it was playing at the Alamo Draft House. So we were like, "All right, we gotta go and see it." So I think it was even better on the big screen because I'd never seen it.
It was hilarious on the big screen, and it's one of those movies that it benefits from having an audience that's kind of like in on it and having a blast with it. So as you're having more fun and everyone else is having more fun, you can just kind of feel like the audience is kind of bubbling with excitement as the movie go on. And this movie has crazy gore, crazy practical effects. It was a gem, and I am eternally grateful that you have introduced me to such a movie.
And it just gets crazier and crazier as it goes along, I feel like. And yes, as you said, yes, you can watch it alone, but it's so much more fun if you grab some buddies or whatever, or grab your friends and watch it, because you can all sit there and make fun of it and be amazed at how insane it is.
And delighted and surprised.
The first time that I heard about this film was back in the 90s. I knew some guys that did a movie review show way back then.
Is this still, are we copying them right now?
No, they didn't do a list of shame. I mean, they actually just watched movies and then talked about them. But I was talking to those guys, and they were mentioning the story of Ricky. I think they were talking about it amongst themselves, and I heard some of the crazy shit that they were saying about guys' heads exploding and stuff like that. And I was like, what movie are you guys talking about? And they're like, oh, you got to see this movie, the story of Ricky. So when Craig Kilborn used to host the Late Show, that now who's in that? It's not Jon Stewart anymore. It's whoever it is, John Oliver or somebody. I forget who it is.
Wait,
somebody took it over.
Is that Seth Meyer?
Somebody. I get all those shows confused. But when Craig Kilborn hosted his Late Show, he would do your moment of Zen, I think, or 5 questions or something like that. I wish I would have researched this before I started talking about it. But he had a segment on the show where it showed a clip from a story of Ricky where he's crushing a guy's head. It's the big guy that he fights, not the warden that he fights at the end, but the big guy that he fights at one point in the movie. And this guy's just crushing this guy's head. And back in those days, you couldn't just be like, well, what is that from?
Yeah, you couldn't
you
Google
had no
on the
idea
internet
what it was from. But the guys that I
YouTube.
was talking to that had the movie review show said, oh, if you ever watch Late Night or whatever with Craig Kilborn, that scene is from the story of Ricky. And I was like, I've always wanted to find that movie. Yeah. So somehow or another, I found myself ordering a DVD copy of it. So I had a DVD copy for a while, and then now I have a Blu-ray copy. But honestly, the Blu-ray copy's not that great. Yeah. But it doesn't matter with a film like this. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So now that I've gone on a tirade,
we all have movies that we've purchased through eBay because they're gems that we love and we heard about growing up. And for me, it was Rock and Roll High School Forever is back on the shelf. Monster Squad. So we all have those movies that we kind of heard about and heard tales of, and then had to find some way to procure it in the early days of the internet before finally they blessed us with DVD releases and Blu-ray releases. Right. Again, sorry to interrupt you.
No. You're so right. We're living in an age now where it's so much easier to find these films that for the longest time were holy grails to us, and we were searching for. So it's a great time to be in, and it's only going to get better as more and more movies get released. But getting to, now that I've talked about Story of Ricky forever, but I had to mention Story of Ricky because it's insane. This is kind of anticlimactic. I don't know if we need a drum roll because, like you, when we talked about our favorite kind of incarnation of Batman, I mentioned Batman Begins. Yeah. Really the Nolan kind of trilogy, although yes, Dark Knight Rises, everybody's like, PU. But the first 2 films especially, it's kind of a cheat. So if I had to pick one, as you know, my favorite of the trilogy is Batman Begins. But I love the way that Batman was depicted on screen. One thing I didn't mention before when we talked about it was I know everybody kind of poo-poos on the voice that he did.
Yeah.
And the first movie, it didn't bother me. As the movies went on, I was because as more and more people started to kind of bring it up and make fun of it, I was like, yeah, it is kind of distracting. But I wouldn't say it's distracting enough for me to dislike the movie. But it is kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, so, just like for me, I just feel like, and we talk about this, and I just feel like the story isn't just completely baked with Batman Begins, and I don't know. I just feel like. I don't know. I feel like
it's fully baked with
Dark Knight for sure. And I just
and I totally get that. I totally get that. I mean, I don't think anybody that likes Dark Knight over Batman Begins is wrong. I would say it's just, I think, again, maybe it's kind of back to a Desperado El Mariachi kind of argument. Not that you saw the Dark Knight before you saw Batman Begins, but it just kind of comes down to preferences and whatever. But
I 100% agree with that. And you know, some things we talked about too is that I'm not a big fan of the gadget Batman or like the armor Batman. So that stuff kind of gets me.
Yeah.
The thing that drives me the most crazy in Batman Begins is the bats. Like he has the homing signal in his boots and makes the bats come, like, or him out in the rain with his like little antenna listening, and the in his helmet, or his cowl, I guess I can't really call it helmet. His cowl. Those things kind of this has got to take me out of the movie, but I'm hoping with, I really want a remake. I want a telling of Batman Year One.
Year One, I do too.
And we think the Reeves one's going to be that way. It looks that way.
That'd be cool.
But that's kind of what I want, and I felt like there's a lot of source material for that. I just wish they used more of it. I don't know. We'll have to. We're gonna have to do an episode where we go through it, and so I can rewatch it again, and we can talk forever about why I don't like it.
Okay. On that note.
And on that note,
I think we're all done here.
All right. So that was our review on Sin City and an even longer review on comic book movies.
and Story of Ricky in particular.
It's Story of Ricky in particular. They're all gems here, guys. Just go check them out. Thank you for tuning in. Shoot us an email if you want your question answered on air at realshame@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, Real Shame. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and we will see you next time.